Good morning. Shall we start the session with prayer? God of grace, we open our hearts, mind, and soul to worship you. We come to you asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Give us your wisdom to understand the topic and give us success in all our ways. May our hearts be prepared to help lighten others' burden, and may we be lighted to lighten. We ask this prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Dear participants, welcome you all to this program. After nearly 3 months of lockdown imposed by the government in response to COVID-19, social distancing, individuals being quarantined, everyone here would agree with me that it has been a time of mental stress and agony for families, daily wage laborers, citizens, and for young people too. This program holds immense relevance as a number of people are suffering from mental health disorders, alcohol addictions, loneliness, and despair during this challenging time. So we are indeed honored and privileged to have in our midst in this virtual platform, Dr. Renuka David, a wellness entrepreneur and is now an inspiring personality in the world of lifestyle and health. Dr. Renuka Devi holds an MBBS degree with a postgraduate diploma in maternity and child health. Being a frontier doctor, she has worked extensively in the well-being and healthcare of women and young adults in urban, rural, and tribal India. She dons many avatars as an entrepreneur, doctor, professional, speaker, TV host, and a wellness expert. She is currently the managing director of the Radiant Medical Services, a vertical of the Radiant Group of companies founded by her husband, Colonel David Devasahayam. Over the years, Dr. Renuka David has become a sought-after motivational speaker by students and professionals across diverse backgrounds. She sits on many boards of various organizations, which also includes our very own Women's Christian College Executive Board, for which she's a member. Dr. Renuka has been awarded numerous awards for her contribution to health and wellness. The Jaguar Women Achiever Award, the title of India's Most Exceptional Speaker Award on Human Rights Day, the coveted Black Swan Award for Women Empowerment. Dr. Renuka also hosts an inspirational talk show in Good News Television and on her YouTube channel as well. She inspires, motivates, and addresses preventive health care and advocates healthy lifestyle. It seems there is little that Dr. Renuka cannot do or has not done, from being a trained Bharatanatyam dancer, a national level basketball player, apart from her love for academics and a founder of a school too. The list goes on and on. So it may take a long time for me. So I just got the gist of it and I'm just presenting it to you people. So on behalf of the management, principal, faculty, and students of Women's Christian College, I extend a very warm welcome to you, ma'am. Now, over to you.
Well, good morning all. Thank you, Dr. Shobha, for this beautiful introduction and a very kind welcome. I'm indeed honored to be here at this platform addressing so many students, youth about, I think, the need of the hour. A special thank you to Dr. Lillian Jasper, who is the principal of WCC, and I'm really, really happy to be here. Today, the topic that has been requested is mental wellness. You know, Dr. Shobha, there are so many, people suffering from mental health. And I think mental health affects all of us. And
Yes.
the way it strikes, if you remember, recently we lost an upcoming very young actor, Sushant Singh Rajput, just last week on last Sunday on 14th. And it kind of there is a tremendous requirement to create awareness. You know, there is a stigma attached to mental wellness, mental health. Anyone who goes through depression or has suicidal thoughts, they still consider it a stigma to go to a mental health professional to seek advice or treatment. And I think that has to be removed. We have to take mental health as a physical illness and be okay to go to a doctor, because whenever we fall sick, we do not hesitate to go to a physician, to a cardiologist, to a ENT specialist, or to an orthopedician. But I think we should have the same likewise for mental health without having any stigma. Having said this, I would like to share some statistics. You know, the statistics are so frightening. Unlike a couple of decades back, today the cause of death among young people and women is suicide. That's the number one mortality cause of mortality in India. Earlier, it used to be cancer in women, it used to be cervical, breast cancer, but today, suicide is the number one cause of mortality in India. The second frightening statistics is that among all the countries in the world, India leads in suicide. So that's something that all of us have to be mindful of. It has to be, we have to do something about it. We have to address it. There are about 235,000 people committing suicide every year. And among, it is prevalent among people who are under 44 years old. That's what the studies have revealed. The age group more between 15 to 29. There are at least about 15, 30 people taking their lives per hour. So it is a very, very mind-blowing statistics that we have right now in front of us. And 15 people, as I said, commit suicide every hour. And the why it makes it even more important is, as you are aware, India has a population of 1.3 billion people, and we just have about 6,000 odd psychiatrists. So it becomes even more imperative that we should be responsible as individuals to not only recognize the symptoms and signs of depression within ourselves, but in the community that we stay, our close family, our friends, our peers, our colleagues. We have to immediately recognize the symptoms and do something about it. Everyone feels sad and irritable and have sleep difficulties once in a way. But when this persists for more than 2 weeks, and it also kind of affects your ability to think, to work, and that's the time you call that person to be depressive. So it varies in severity. You have mild, moderate, and severe depression. Now, what are the general signs? You might like to ask me that, how do you know a person is depressed? How do you feel that this person? Generically, if I have to speak, I would say that a person who's generally happy, lucky go, a happy person, he suddenly feels sad, irritable, hopeless, especially to your future. There's a loss of interest in every activity you do. There is a loss of pleasure in any activity you do. You do not feel social anymore. And then your sleep patterns might change. You might become insomniac. That is, you might not get sleep at night, or you might be oversleeping. You might be just sleeping a lot. There would be fatigue, suicidal thoughts, and then you suddenly, your whole body language changes. You are walking slowly, talking slowly, very melancholic. In children and adolescent, it expresses out in different forms. So if you have got a young child at home, if you've got children at home, it could be like that suddenly the child all the time getting angry, aggressive, low in self-esteem, excessive guilt. The child would do something, but he's all the time feeling guilty. I shouldn't have done it. Why am I doing this? Why? There's this recurring thoughts of guilt. Then there's suddenly that my stomach is paining, back is paining, head is paining, constant complaints of aches, reduced physical activity, difficulty in concentrating in studies, irritable mood swings, sleep loss, weight loss problems, poor performance at school, and then suicidal thoughts. And when you have an older person at home, because I said, as I reiterate, depression is not just for one segment, it is prevalent in a population under 44, but it affects all the people across the ages. So when there are older people at home, maybe your grandparents or your great uncles or something, they also can get depressed. There is an inability to socialize, their health declines, they are anxious, they're impatient, they're irritable, they have sleeping disorders. So if I have to specifically say that what are the signs that you have to look out for, one is, we as doctors say, we take three cues: the verbal cue, the behavioral cue, and the psychological or cognitive cues. So what are the verbal cues over there? Verbal cues is suddenly a person who's there, he'll suddenly say, I don't feel like living, I want to sleep, but I don't want to wake up, or I want to be peaceful, this life is just not worth living, I don't want to be a burden for anyone. If I'm gone, people around me will be very happy. So these are all the verbal cues that person is telling, that person is talking. 80% of people talk, they are talking, but most of us do not listen. Then the second is the behavioral cues. Behavioral cues is the person is withdrawn, he doesn't talk to anybody, he doesn't pay attention to whatever you're doing, he doesn't, suddenly he loses interest in dressing. A person who's generally well turned out, well dressed, is suddenly looking shabby, hair is grown, nails are all unkept. And then he starts giving off something which is precious to him. You know, if it's like a sports person, suddenly starts giving out his rackets, his prizes, or if it is an older person, suddenly starts writing his will. And then, if it is younger children, they start throwing temper tantrums. And for children, they show temper tantrums, or they're anxious or they're irritable. Older people, they're isolated, they start crying. And then the third cue is the psychological or cognitive cues. Here it is more or less agitation, restlessness, not interested, repeated thoughts of suicide. So these are the specific cues as healthcare workers we recognize as the verbal cue, the behavioral cue, and the psychological or cognitive cues. Now, what are the causes of depression? Because this is one question a lot of people ponder of, people ask me, because you see depression across. You see a Deepika Padukone being depressed and who comes out in the open in spite of having everything. She has fame, she has money, she has family, she has everything. But she gets up one morning, doesn't know what's happening to her, and then figures out that she goes to a counselor, and then she's told that she's passing through depression. You have a Sushant who's so depressed that he takes away his life by hanging himself. And then you have people from poorer segments. So what is the cause? So as a medical doctor, I would still say the exact cause of mental illness is still not known, but studies show that it is caused by a combination of three factors. One is biological, second is environmental, and third is, of course, psychological. These are the three major factors, and we have some minor factors also. So the biological factor, what are the biological factors for a person to get depressed? Dr. Shobha, can you hear me? Yeah. So, Dr. Shobha, can you hear me?
Yes, doctor. Yes, doctor, we can hear you.
Perfect. So, as I said, what are the biological causes of depression? So, the biological causes is one, it can, be genetically transferred. There can be a bad gene in your family. Maybe your some of your elderly people, your father, mother, your grandparents, your aunts, or someone, it could have a genetic connotation to it. You might just have unlucky born with a bad gene of depression. Then you could be having deficiency of a neurotransmitter called as serotonin, or it could be just your body changes, your hormonal changes at that point of time. Then second, the environmental. Now, environmental is what I think is the major cause, which causes a lot of concern and depression among young people. Environmental can be attributed to two factors, trauma and abuse. So what about the trauma that we're talking of? Trauma, in a sense, it could be emotional trauma or it could be physical trauma. And when I say emotional trauma, I'm talking of trauma which a person passes in recent times. It can be loss of a loved one in terms of death, or person loses someone as in there's a divorce in a relationship, or there is a breakup in a relationship, or there's some kind of a bullying which is happening to that person. If it's in school, it's a child and maybe in school or college, or bullying at home or among friends, or it could just be the feeling of decreased warmth from very loved ones, especially loved ones like your parents. So chronic stress in childhood in the form of severe poverty, exposure to violence, and living at home with substance abusing adults in the form of alcohol or drugs, or any stressful situations can also lead to illness physically and mentally. And it also becomes all the more difficult for those children when they grow into adults, because this early stress also impacts how these children, when they grow up into adults, they would treat their children, and that would affect the next generation. So emotional stress or emotional trauma, especially for a child, is absolutely to be mindful for, because it is not just temporary, it stays on with the child, and when he becomes a parent, it definitely affects the next generation. Then, of course, you have the physical form of trauma, which could be in the form of a head injury. People who must have got just had any kind of head injury, they could also, have trauma. Then the second, as I said, was I finished the biological. Then I said about the environment where it is trauma, and then the abuse part is one can be verbally abused or sexually abused. So this could be some factors where a person goes into some kind of depression. And then the third major cause, which many studies have kind of resonated with, is psychological. So psychological cause can be, there's always this negative body image or low self-esteem, that's saying that I'm not good enough, I'm so fat, I'm so short, I'm so dark, my friend is so pretty, my parents love my sister because she's so pretty, or I'm not accepted in this friend circle because of my particular physical appearance. So there's always this negative body building, there's low esteem, then there's a negative social and kind of contact skills, that you feel that the other person is speaking so well, their skills are so better off, but you're not good enough. So there is that kind of a psychological issue, and which kind of affects your cognitive and your learning abilities. The minor causes which is attributed to depression could be illness, because some people who have got illness in the form of cancer or lifestyle diseases like diabetes, hypertension, coronary artery disease, coronary vascular disease, or anything, any kind of illness, recent or chronic, can be a major cause of depression. Economic problems, financial crisis, poor income, all this definitely leads on. As I said, these are minor causes, these are not the major causes. This might be causes for depression. And then for elderly, again, there are also people who get depressed. It could be because of a loss of a loved one, it could be feeling that they are losing their relevance in the family. An elder who used to be so relevant and so contributory to a family affairs, he suddenly not all that feeling of not being relevant, or there's some for among the elders economic insecurity, because they start depending on their children for their social income, social inactivity, or even limited inclusion in the social events around them. So these are by and large studies which have we have pulled out to say these could be the causes of depression. So how is the treatment part of it? So treatment part is varies from individual to individual. So we will there are two modes of treatment. As I said, you have the mild, you have the moderate, and you have the severe forms of depression. So depending on your manifestation is the treatment. Generally, we doctors, we call it the psychotherapy or the pharmacotherapy. Pharmacotherapy is drug therapy, and psychotherapy is a psychological counseling therapy. And also you have other modes of treatment. So suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. Life is not about how you handle your success. Life is how you handle your failures. And in acute phase, There are three feelings that a person has, and those three feelings, which is very, very important to recognize, is loneliness, helplessness, and hopelessness. 80% of these people actually are telling it loudly that I am depressed, and it is just that you do not listen. So you just don't have time to listen. So it is very, very important. Now I'm going to divide this treatment part into two categories. One is for the person who's depressed, and another is for the person who's listening, who's a close friend, who's a mother, who's a father, who's a teacher, who's a well-wisher, and who's looking for. So what does that person have to do? So one is listen, and always remember that this acute suicidal tendency is just a window of 2 to 3 weeks. And if you are able to listen at that point of time, trying to say, as I told you earlier in my talk, you have the verbal cues, you have the three cues that are there. If you are able to recognize any one of these, especially the verbal cue, you will know that you have to act. So listen. And then second is also to validate what is going on. When I say validate, I'm saying that if that person is going through depression, you do not have to kind of, immediately say, oh, I'm so sad. I know you're in such a bad position. Oh, poor you. Don't do that. That way, you're actually try to behaving something called as a learned helplessness, especially now at the point of COVID that we're all talking of. There's a lot of people who are losing their income, they're losing their loved ones, and you don't know what they're going through. You actually have no idea what they're, so there's no point even trying to be in that space because you're not in that space. So you have to kind of, what you need to do is you have to get out that inner resilience. You have to get out that inner thing. So suppose some person is having problem in sleeping, so you don't have to say, oh, what is wrong with you, how can you're behaving like this, see the people around you, they're so much better off than you, and in spite of having all these luxuries you're still feeling depressed, shame on you. So that's not the way you got to handle this person. All you have to say, suppose he is not sleeping or she's not sleeping, you got to just say, okay, try to sleep for 7 hours, 8 hours, and tomorrow when you get up you'll be nice and fresh. Maybe you can rewrite a new resume. Maybe this job was not meant for you, you can do something better than this. Or tell him how he can go about it. Maybe if he's not having a proper diet, advise him, why don't you, this diet is working good for me, this, they keep saying immuno boosters are good, vitamin C, zinc, all this, why don't you try this? So what you're trying to do is trying to mentally get him into a better space. And so you're not creating this learned helplessness within him, but you're trying to build his inner resilience. And do not compare, do not ever compare, because he just wants you to listen. He doesn't even want you to tell him that you're a mental case, you're going into depression. No, he doesn't want to hear that. He just wants you to believe that, okay, I'll tell you a little story. There was this famous psychiatrist, and he had this helpline number, and he had asked people that whoever are feeling bad, whoever feeling, no, just call me any time of the point, and I am there to help you, and I'll get you out of it. So there was this person who had this, acute phase of, he wanted to commit suicide, and he was all set to commit suicide, and he just some stroke, he calls the psychiatrist and he says, doctor, I'm going to commit suicide. And I'm no, nothing, I'm passing through this, no one, you can't understand how I'm feeling, you have no idea, I'm passing through this, I'm passing through that. And the doctor kept talking to him, and the fact that doctor gave him about 10 reasons why he should not commit suicide. He gave him 10 reasons, that life is beautiful, see, you're very precious, this phase will go, if you're committing suicide, what about your parents that you're leaving behind, have you ever thought about them, what about the friends that you're leaving, and you're such a chosen person, you're so precious, you've been made so preciously, you've been here for a purpose, how are you just forgetting? He just kept talking and talking and talking, and that person did not commit suicide. Later on, when they asked him that, oh, and congratulations to the doctor, he said so many good things, so you did not commit suicide, I think one of those must have, he said, no, nothing of that helped. It was just the fact that somebody out there in the middle of the night was willing to hear me. I just was so full. My system felt like a pressure cooker. I was so like a pressure cooker. And the fact that someone was just listening to what I was saying without being judgmental, without comparing, it felt as if, I was releasing of the steam, and inside me, the feeling simmered down. So that's how you have to do. You just have to patiently listen. without comparing, without being judgmental. And then in case it's beyond you and you know that this person needs special care, then you can refer that person to an institution or to a medical psychiatrist or a counselor, professional counselor, who can sort of help you out. And especially for institutions, education institution need to be aware and provide support in a very, very positive manner, because that's where the youth are today. They are there to talk about the frustrations, and that's the nurturing ground for them. Also, it is important to make youth understand that depression or any other disorder is not a mental illness. It is just that there's no stigma attached to it. It is okay to be like this, because as I told you, the statistics which I told you is alarming. So it is okay to, a lot of people who are facing through what you're doing is okay, and there's nothing wrong with him. And he's just a you. I mean, you just have to be positive and encourage that person. Now, what about the people who are suffering? The people who are suffering is, do not wait too long. The moment you recognize that you're having any of these symptoms, please reach out. The earlier you reach out, it is better. Reach out without feeling that, oh my God, now this person will call me mental. This person will say I'm suicidal. I'll get a tag with my name. Don't be worried about that. Just reach out. And it may be extremely difficult to take any action to help yourself, but as you begin to recognize your depression and begin treatment, you'll start feeling much better. And then try to be active, try to, as I said, there could be a decrease in your happy hormones like endorphins or serotonins. So exercise helps in a big way. Try to be active. Exercise brings out these good hormones. Keep yourself active, eat the right kind of people, and also reach out to people who you can confide in as a trusted friend, who will at the end of the conversation, you'll feel positive, you'll feel energized after talking to a friend like this. And always expect your mood to improve gradually, not suddenly that, oh, now this is the doctor told me, now today I'll become okay. No, it'll be a gradual process. Slowly you expect your mood to steadily improve. And then of course there would be your skill and behavioral therapy, which would be a professional which will put you through. So that is a little bit about treatment. Manifestations of depression can be many. Anxiety is one. Anxiety is a major manifestation of, it could be panic disorder, it could be chronic anxiety disorder, stress disorders. A second manifestation can be insomnia, that is your sleep disorders. You could have difficulty in sleeping. Then there's a special depression, this thing which I think I must tell you is called the high function depressive. Who are the high function depressives? Now, these are people, they have mood swings, they have low energy, they are perfectionist, they have total high criticism, self-doubt, but in spite of high productivity in their work. These are people who are depressed, but continue performing the task. They ace their task. They are toppers. And they go about jobs proper. If they're doing a 9-to-5 job, they'll be perfect. They'll do the job. They perform the best. They'll come home. They'll do all the household activities, what they need to do. But her demeanor doesn't show any signs of depression. This is termed as high function depression. They are experts and leaders from the exterior, but actually they feel very hollow inside. So this is another manifestation called high function depressives. And of course, suicidal thoughts. When you have suicidal thoughts, like it's a very impulsive phenomena. Being suicidal is very impulsive. It is at the moment. Suddenly you're depressed, you feel at the moment, no, that's it, nothing. I'm not going to listen to anyone. This is the time I'm committing suicide. I'm not going to listen. So it's a very short window. So that support, if it is given in time, it can be prevented. Research has shown that majority of them have already spoken to somebody about it. It is just that we fail to listen to them at that point of time. And majority of them, the wish to live and the wish to die is something like a seesaw battle. If you talk to them, most of them will say, it is not that I really want to die, but then I can't live like this. So if a support is given, this is again one symptom. If you recognize that this is, these people also are very suicidal. It's like a seesaw that they have between them. People who are at high risk are children, as I said, but children, you have to be very mindful. Time will tell how, especially in these COVID conditions that we're living in, these closed doors. So how is it going to psychologically affect the children? Because children are social animals. They like to go outside, they like to play in the playground, they like to run around in the field, they like to be involved in games. They're just not sitting there. So you're actually tightening them and telling them to sit during this lockdown. But it's very important as parents to be very affectionate, very patient, because what happens is parents are also working, parents are also having deadlines. So the child who's already feeling isolated, he's not allowed to go to his teachers or his peers or his friends. Suddenly he sees his parents also working all the time because they are meeting deadlines online. So be mindful of it. Allocate time that these children, you're spending a lot of time, and involve them in a lot of other activities, like maybe some board games, or physically just spend a lot of time with them. Also, there is the thing of increased time in your screen time. Most of these children are their entertainment is their iPad, their iPhones, or their laptop. And now with this online education, most of them are also doing online education, seeing the screen and studying. So there is literally little exercise. They're ending up eating all kind of junk food. So yes, it's so I said children are at high risk. There is a difference in their structure, in their routine, and also unfortunately being shut up at home, and being their children are also put into a lot of physical abuse at home. People should be very mindful of, and for them to accept this new norm, it would take some time for them. So these are a little bit in a nutshell that I have spoken about depression. So Dr. Shobha, if you have any questions for me, I would be very happy to answer. Oh, Elsie is there. Hello,
Good
Elsie.
morning, ma'am. Can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, you are, Elsie. Good to see
Oh,
you.
good to see you too, ma'am. So I have a couple of questions, and before that, it was really informative and helpful. So
Thank you.
thank you, ma'am. So the couple of questions I have. So the first question would be, is self-diagnosis possible for mental health?
So Elsie, as I mentioned, we are to be very, very mindful of this, because self diagnosis is it could be, a double-edged sword. You could now that I've told you all about depression, what are the signs and this thing, even a normal person who is normally, as I said, every one of us, every normal individual, we do pass through our mood swings. We feel low, we feel down. So suddenly you say, no, we had this nice webinar by Dr. Renuka. Now I know I've become depressed. Now I'm a depressive person. No, I don't think that is right. Yes, you can diagnose yourself that maybe you have a mental health if you realize that something is wrong with you. You feel from inside that no, I'm not feeling too good the way I generally feel, or I'm not sleeping well, or I'm not eating well, or I'm losing weight unnecessarily, or I'm just not social anymore. So these are some symptoms maybe you should look for in yourself.
Okay. Thank you so much, ma'am. And the next question would be, so what is the difference between falling anxious and actually having an anxiety?
So feeling anxious is actually a response to a stressful situation. So your stressful situation can be, maybe your exams are going to come, or maybe you have to face an interview, or maybe you're going to a new place and you've never met the people before, or maybe you just want to, you're very scared to approach a situation. So these are all, it is actually a response to a stress, and that is anxiety. But when I say anxiety disorder, that means it is more of, you have got these situations which are there irrespective of any of your stress. There's no stressful situation. It is there throughout. It is there all the time without any stressful situation. And also it could manifest in different kinds of forms. You could have a panic attack, panic disorder. You could have social anxiety disorder. So there are many forms of this, chronic disorders. So this is a situation where you do not have a kind of, there's no stressful situation. You're just stressed all the time, you're anxious all the time, and this also occurs for a period of 2 weeks or more. The anxiety is just a short term. It is anxious for a particular moment, and then you deal with it and you're out of it. But the other one, anxiety depression, is when you asked whether being anxious and having anxiety. So anxiety is when you're having it all the time, and it is there with you. So that's the difference.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. So the third question would be, So this is on all over the social media like today. So in like the incident, the death of the actor Sushant Singh Rajput, everybody started posting on their social media saying that they could talk to someone, like they could talk to me and talk to someone and share something to someone. What if he or she who is like required to talk to someone is misguided, or he or she doesn't receive the required information, or like he or she is misguided? Like, will it help or does it make the situation worse?
This is a very good question, Elsie.
Thank
See,
you.
there are two ways to see this. It is helpful, and also it has got its disadvantages. So the one is, at this point of time, especially a person like Sushant, who was really, I would say, he was in the category of severe depression. People like him who are moderate to severe depressed must reach out for professional health workers, mental health workers, certified psychiatrists who have been dealing with this through their knowledge and who have studied how to deal with situations and how to treat people like this. So that's very, very important. Now, what is the help when you're doing online consultations? So there are a lot of nice things which is there, especially right now during the COVID times. Geographically, people are distancing themselves, have to distance themselves. And also, suppose you need an online consultation from a professional who's not even in your country, who's miles and miles away from you. So that way you have this thing of getting their appointment and having an online consultation with them and getting a best treatment. Second is that you always are, would like to help those patients who are socially awkward. They do not necessarily want to go to a psychiatrist's office or want to go to someone's people and talk about that illness. So this platform is good for those people. Another advantage is any time of the day or night, not night, but of course daytime, you can consult with your psychiatrist. And it's also done in the comfort of your own home. So you can just reach out to that person in your own home. You don't have to dress up and you can just talk to your person. And also the cost would be relatively less if you have to go to a professional psychiatrist. Here you're at home and you're doing your online, you're getting your online consultation. So there is also this invisible client. You do not put your name over there, but you can just call yourself an invisible client, so that if you feel that, oh my God, by doing this, there's going to be a stigma attached, he's going to label me as a mental person. So the stigma is not there. Now, what are the disadvantages? There are a couple of disadvantages in this. One is that your privacy and your confidentiality of any information can be leaked. So whatever is your medical reports, that can be leaked if you're not mindful about. That's why I was telling you, must go through a certified, qualified health worker, mental health worker, who would able to even legally understand these implications. Second is that suppose that you go to an unknown person who doesn't have the qualification and who's just wanting to help you. So he could do good if he's a close friend of yours, if he's a person, a good listener, and he's willing to listen, and you know in your heart that if I talk to this person, I'm going to feel good at the end of the day. That is good. But suppose it's just an unknown random person online who's not qualified, who's just there to tell you, he could actually do a little more harm if he doesn't know what he's dealing with, especially if it's a real moderate to severe depressed person. He might just give the wrong impression and it might do even more wrong. There's also there's a continuous communication required, because depressive, when you go, you have to have a continuous consultation. It is not just one time you do. So you have to have repeated sessions. So it is important to make sure that your counselor is there for you. And technically also he's well connected, because you are passing through that phase where you have to speak to your counselor, but then your maybe internet is not on, or you don't have the correct tools for it. So these are the big time advantages. Of course, the client also it can work the other way. The client can also start stalking and embarrassing the counselor. So because generally the clients, the patients, or the people fall in love with the counselor, they're getting all their answers and they're getting all the patient this thing. So it can also be the other way around. And then sometimes what happens is the tone and language which is perceived can be wrongly perceived by the person who's asking as counselor. So these are many disadvantages, but there are some very good, as I said, it can be very helpful on certain situations.
Okay, thank you so much. So next question would be, so what are the chances for the person out of depression could like probably fall into depression again?
Yes. So this one, Elsie, is that half the people who have experienced depression, actually they remain well. Half of them remain well. But there are the other 50 to 85% of them who one time or the other they can again get depressed. So in this I would like to talk about two incidences. One is relapse. We say relapse is when depression occurs within 2 months of the earlier treatment. So that's when you can go into a relapse. And recurrence happens many years later. It occurs in about 20% of severely depressed people. But this is but 50%. The good news is that 50% often it doesn't come back again. You can only, the other 50 to 85%, you can either have a relapse or a recur.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am. So the next question would be, just a second, ma'am. So do you think normalizing depression and anxiety can lead people taking advantage of it, or making people like being sympathetic toward the person, like wantedly would someone do that, like normalizing depression?
I would definitely, if you have to weigh both of it in a scale, I would actually say that it's a good thing, because at least by doing that, people will come out and talk. It's okay if people say that they're trying to, gather empathy, or they're trying to gather sympathy, or they're trying to, seek attention. They're attention seekers. But I think when you wait, or when you see it in the bigger picture, this is all very minor. If a person is willing to come out and talk about his problem, I think it's a good thing. It's a good thing that it happens. These are little hiccups. I'm okay about it, as long as a person is open to come out, talk about it, and address it, and not have the stigma to fear or get scared to seek medical advice or treatment.
Okay, and adding on to it, ma'am, does normalizing depression cause people who are sad and lonely to misinterpret that they are actually in depression and facing a hard time, just because they're sad and lonely for some particular time?
Yeah, so Elsie, as I said, sadness and depression occurs to everybody. You, me, anyone. If anyone is going to say that no, I never feel sad, I never feel depressed, I don't think they're being very truthful, because everybody in life go through sadness. I mean, there are moments you're happy. See, when you see a ECG graph, ECG graph has its ups and down and up and down. You must have seen an ECG graph when a person in a hospital.
Yes,
Have you
yes,
seen the
ma'am.
ECG
Yes.
waves?
Yes.
So what happens when the line just goes straight?
It's just the life ends.
That's it.
Like
So
there's
you have
no
to have your
heartbeat.
yeah. So you have to have your ups, you have to have your lows. That's life.
Okay.
So that's absolutely normal and natural. Everyone has it. Everyone goes through that. As I said, if you're chronically feeling this continuously for 2 weeks and more, and if it is going to affect your day-to-day activities in terms of your productivity, then you're in serious trouble, and then you have to go out and ask for help.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So the next question would be, is medication the only possible way, or there are other ways which could really help?
So Elsie, there is no one, one fit for all problems or one fit for all solutions. Every single case is different. So as I told you, we had categorized it into mild, moderate, and severe. So we have two major forms of treatment, which is the drug therapy, or what we call is the pharmacotherapy, or the counseling therapy, which we call as psychotherapy. So whether it's an antidepressive drug or style of talk therapy, if you have to ease the depression. However, research suggests that you will improve your chances of getting rid of depression if you have a combination of both. One report that actually, there's a statistics which I'm saying, they pooled findings from about 25 studies which found that adding psychotherapy to drug treatment is helpful for major depressives. So that is one. Now, if you remember, I was talking to you about the relapse when you had asked me the question whether people. So in addition to relieving depression, combination actually, it also helps in the recurrence. So when they did a study with 200 people over the age of 60, those who received monthly interpersonal therapy of depression and of the drug, 80% of them avoided the recurrence. In contrast, when they were just given drugs, 57% were cured, and it was just your interpersonal therapy, 38% were cured. So it depends on your mild, moderate also. Generally for the mild depressives, just the psychological counseling, that is their psychotherapy, is more than enough. If it's moderate, too severe, then you can have medication with your psychotherapy. Of course, you have the other treatments also. You have other than that, in the hospitals you have other treatments. So it depends on whatever your doctor considers, but consider all your options very carefully and discuss them with the professionals that you're treating. So whichever works for me, psychotherapy or pharmacotherapy or combination of both, depends. So but generally for mild, psychotherapy would be good.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So there are some more questions from the participants on Zoom, ma'am. So the next question is, how do you deal with a depressed person who becomes defensive?
So this is a very good question. May I know who's asked this question?
Just a second, ma'am. I will check it. It is asked by Ashwati, ma'am. Ashwati Shankar.
Okay, hi Ashwati. That's a very good question. So when does a person become defensive? A person becomes defensive when he is not okay to be truthful to himself. He is denying the fact that something's wrong with him. So it is always first in any kind of liberation or any kind of the first step of any kind of treatment is acceptance. That's the first step. So it's very important that if you're not feeling right and for 2 weeks you're not, you're down, you're not, that you're depressed, from inside that you're not okay, you must accept it. So once you accept it, then you have to reach out. So reach out to a person who's willing to listen. It could be a friend, it could be a parent, it could be a teacher, it could be a peer group, or it could be a doctor. Reach out to that person who will listen. And just by anyone who's willing to listen to you or to the person who is going to be defensive, it will make a world of difference. And that stigma of carrying that, oh, nothing is wrong with me. This is why we are all having this conversation, that we should not be having the stigma. We should not ridicule anyone who's having a mental illness, because it's high time that we take mental illness as any physical illness.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am. So this question is from Amrita. So the question is, the major suicidal cases are among students, especially from ones who are expecting exam results or seeing their colleges. So when a student does not pass the expectation of his or her parent, they can also enter into a symptom of a particular depression. So in such cases, there is no listener for them to share, nor they are in the right mood to sort it out themselves. So what should the kid, not the parent, such kind of situation?
So Elsie, this is again a very, very, very valid question, and this question is very valid because today we are talking to students, we are addressing students.
Dr. Renuka, can you unmute your please, the others, mute your microphones. Yes, thank you, doctor.
Okay. So this is the baby step where we are taking towards students or towards young people below 44 who we have spoken about depression, but I think the major step that we have to be addressing is to school, college, institutions, parents and teachers, because as I said, high performance in studies, high is not the answer for you to be successful or to be famous or to whatever is your definition of success or famous or being famous. It is just that the resilience to carry on in spite of your setbacks, and your setback is temporary. Today you may not have cleared an exam, you might have not passed, you might be not doing whatever your parents or teachers think that by doing will make you the right person or to make you a person who's a successful person, but that is wrong, because you need not be you need not be a genius in studies, or need not be a overall performer, like you need not be excellent in academics, excellent in sports, excellent in other activities to be successful. So this mindset has to be changed. You are made differently, you're wired differently, and you have your very, very strong positives. That positives have to be recognized by your parents, by your teachers, and you have to be encouraged to pursue. I know for instance, I know students who have joined engineering college, Anna University, because of pressure from the parents that, oh, you've done well in 12th, now you got Anna University, you have to go inside. and you have to join this engineering course. It is more a self projection for the parents than for the children. Children are put under a lot of stress because of parents expectations, and children are not happy dealing with it. So it's time for children to talk to their parents, to say that no, I don't want to do this, this is not giving me happiness, this is not my calling, I'm not comfortable. Just because your friend's daughter, your friend's child is doing all this doesn't mean you have to expect me to do it. You have to be forthright to talk to your parents and say that, can I do something else? This is my passion, this is what I want to do, this is what I know I'll excel in doing, give me an opportunity, give me a chance. And parents and teachers have to listen, and they cannot compare that person with maybe a brilliant performance studies or sports or extracurricular activities, because that's not right. Every child, every individual needs a voice, every individual is perfect, is special, and that individual has been born for a purpose. So find out what your purpose in life is, what your this thing, and the happiness will be when you fulfill your purpose with passion, with determination, and be an inspirer in whatever field you're good at. That is something that we all have to strive towards.
Doctor, there are a few questions that are in the chat box. This is one question from Priyanka from Nazareth College of Education for Women. And she's asking
Hello,
whether is there any connection with the mood swings related to depression? Mood swings, I think she wants to know whether the mood swings are also related to depression.
So, may I know her name again? I actually
Priyanka,
Priyanka
from Nazareth College of Education.
Okay, so hello, Priyanka. Happy that you asked this question. Actually, you must be a high performance individual, because in my conversation I had mentioned that people who have got this high performance, that is, they are good, they are perfectionists, they strive to achieve, they give better than their best, they do the job brilliantly, but at the same time they're all the time critical about themselves, they're all the time telling they're not good enough, they all the time feel that they are lacking behind. So I think that's the category you fall in. You're a very high performance individual, and that's we call that as high performance depression. So you do have mood swings, it's okay. You do feel anxious, it's okay. And you feel that whatever you're doing is not good enough, it's okay. But accept is that this is how you are, because give it your best shot. Priyanka, just give it your best. You just tell it in your heart that this is, I can't do better than this. This is my best that I can give in any work that you do. And then accept it that this is who I am. And if you have some mood swings, it's okay. It's okay to be a little moody once in a way, or to be grumpy, but get over it. Get over it. Give yourself a good kick. Get over it and get back to being resilient, and keep doing the work that you're doing. Give it your best, and I'm sure that you'll not have too much of mood swings. You just have to accept that this is how you are. This is how God has wired you to be, and love yourself for who you are.
Ma'am,
okay.
I have a question from the Facebook viewers. This is from Tina Fernandez. She has asked a question. How do you make families accept that it is not something bad or shameful to get their children to seek help from a psychiatrist?
So, hi Tina, thank you for this question. As I mentioned in my talk, it's time that we create awareness. It's time that we talk. It's time that we remove the stigma that mental illness is bad, that person is mental, or that person is psychiatric, or be away from that person because he's mental. It's time that we do not we change that rule, that conversation. And as parents, as responsible parents, as responsible leaders in the community, I think it's time that we talk. If you recognize any of these problems among your children, it is okay to talk to your kids. It's okay to encourage your child, or encourage whoever is depressed in your family, to take him to a mental health professional, without putting that person into any kind of because see, that person doesn't want to be told that he's suffering from mental illness. That person hates to be told that he's got a mental stress, because he feels that there's going to be a big stigma around it. He'll not be accepted by the community because he's going to be labeled into a person with a mental illness. So it's time to tell that person that it's okay to have this, it's okay to be like this, it's normal. And because as I mentioned in my therapy, psychotherapy and pharmacotherapy play a big role in treating mild, moderate, or severe depression. So the earlier you recognize the feeling of depression, the symptoms of depression, the earlier you kind of know that this person needs help, please make sure that he or she gets the professional help at the earliest.
Ma'am, there's another question from Srinivasan. He's asking, Madam, is there an existing mechanism to counsel a COVID positive tested patient during hospitalization, just like in case of a major surgery? The emotional stress, especially of a positive patient, right from isolation in hospital and immediate post-discharge, ought to be new. There has been cases recently reported of suicides by patients. So he's asking whether there are any mechanisms to counsel them.
May I know his name?
He's Srinivasan, I don't know.
Okay.
Srinivasan,
Okay,
can you unmute your, or in the name of Srinivasan, anybody, I don't know.
Okay, that's
can you
okay.
Unmute? Okay,
so that's okay. So Srinivasan, this is
yes,
hi, yeah, hi Srinivasan. It's again a very pertinent question that you've asked. Recently, I was in conversation with a person called Colonel Suresh Kumar Sharma. He was instrumental in converting the Seven Health Hospital in Mumbai into a COVID hospital under the Reliance Group. So this was given to him over a month, that they had to convert this hospital into a COVID hospital, and he and his colleague got ready doing this. So as he was doing this, he realized that he developed fever. So he went, got himself tested. It was negative. But a couple of days later, he knew something was not right. He again went and got himself tested. It came positive. And not only he got positive, but this entire family members got positive. And his wife, who's comorbid, I think she had diabetes or something, she also got. So he said the entire process was very scary. So what they did is, the moment they got to know that he was tested positive, the corporation BMC people came, they took him to the ambulance. People were avoiding him as if he was some kind of an untouchable person. Then he was sat there, and then as he got out from the ambulance and as he was walking towards the hospital, people kept fumigating even the way that he was going, even the road where he was walking in, people were fumigating, and that kind of played such an emotional stress in his mind. Like, people are literally running away from him. Then he was kept in an isolated room, and the people that he saw who were coming were all in their hazmat suits and in their masks and in their goggles. So everyone, he couldn't recognize who was the doctor, who was the nurse, who was the attender. He couldn't recognize anybody. So imagine a person being in isolation where you're not even able to see your doctor properly. Everyone are looking alike. They're looking scary. There are all these machines which are making horrible noises. And at home, you are worried that your wife, who's comorbid, has got COVID, and both your daughters who are are comorbid, and they're in isolation at home, not knowing whether the neighbors will feed them or whether they'll be okay. So just imagine the stress of this man. So I was in conversation with this person, and it was really nice to hear how inner resilience of a person, it is a two-way choice that you have to make. You are in a situation and this is how it is, and there is no alternative. This is your situation. Now, how do you react to the situation? That is in your hands. Situation, what is in front of you, is not in your hands, but how you react is in your hands. And he told me that how he just told himself that nothing is going to go wrong with him. He is going to go home and his family is going to be right. And the mental strength was so strong. He just willed himself to not deteriorate. And at home, his wife, where again they had good neighbors, but just imagine living in a condition where you cannot open your front door. Your garbage is all, you can't even put your garbage outside. You take your garbage, put it out, dry it in the sun, that half the garbage is evaporated in the sun. Neighbors are kind enough to come and leave food for you. Your children are all in different rooms. And I'd asked him emotionally how. So he said yes, emotionally it was a very challenging period for him. But the thing that helped him was the good inner resilience that he had built over the years, and the faith that nothing is going to go wrong with him, the mental strength that he had build that nothing. And then what also happened is he could FaceTime with his friends. So that's something which in the West, when I did this course from Harvard Medical School, they said that when you do the ethics of treating a COVID patient, it's very important to also make sure that that person is in connection with his loved ones. So what they do is they FaceTime in their iPad, and then they kind of get their relatives with them. So when a doctor visits that patient in the hospital, they get the relatives also in FaceTime, so that whatever decision the doctor has to be making for the patient, it is a collective decision with the relatives and with the patient. And also another thing is, through the FaceTime, sometimes if a child is admitted, the mother will tell the doctor or the nurse that, just rub your hand over my child's head. He really likes it. That's how I always do, because in conditions when you're COVID, you have to get isolated. Even your loved ones are not there with you. So that kind of work. So yes, two things I would like to say. Your inner resilience, you have to build it, because this is a situation that you're facing and it's in your hands how you're going to react. And second one is that within the constraints, if there are technical tools which will help you to stay connected with your loved ones, ask for it.
Ma'am, we have a question from Hepzibah. How do we confirm that we are out of depression?
So Hepzibah, you'll actually feel you'll feel very different if you know that you're passed through depression and your mind is heavy, your heart is heavy, you're not concentrating in your work, you're all the time feeling helpless, hopeless, isolated, you're feeling down, you're feeling not up to it. And then, over a time, then you suddenly feel as if your spirit is elevated, you're back to how you were before. These are good symptoms of knowing that you're no longer depressed. And one great buster, that is a great thing, is music. In case anyone who's depressed loves to hear loves music, all you have to do is just get your karaoke into your system and sing loudly into your mic, or into your thing. Just sing with that karaoke. You'll be surprised how your depression lives. Or just go do some exercise, because those happy hormones, endorphins, serotonins, all of them come out, and you'll just get out of it like that. So these are, you'll know from inside. You'll just start feeling light. You'll start feeling inspiring. You'll start want to talk about your experience to another person who's going through the same situation. So yeah, you will know.
A question from Abhishek. Why is depression more prevalent in women than in men?
Abhishek, I need to know, where did you get those studies, those statistics from? I would love you to tell me where those statistics are from. But in case it is true that women are getting more depressed, well, what can I say? Maybe it is just that a lot of expectations. They are generally multitasking more than the men. The expectations are very high. They do not get more time to live for themselves. It is all concerning their husband, their children, their in-laws, their parents, their whatever. So I think it is just the fact that it is time that people respect and regard and give the due importance to what a woman brings to the table. And just appreciation is a great thing that all a woman needs. And even if you feel that that's something you can't give, it's up to the woman to just get inner resilient and kind of know that she's good and she can multitask. It's not that women are more suicidal. It is just that it's a thing. It's just a thing about women that maybe they're more expressive, so they're considered more so depressed. The guys, they feel that it's not very manly to show out their feelings. It's not good for a man to cry, or good for a boy to cry, or not good for a guy to feel depressed, but it's okay for a woman to cry. So maybe the manifestations are misleading, but I think it is more to do with an individual choice.
Hi, ma'am. Thank you for that. We have the question from Priyanka, the same Priyanka from Nazareth College of Education. She asked how to overcome our anger, or rather how to handle our kids without getting angry or tension. My kid is hyperactive and he's 3+. I'm not able to handle him without becoming angry or getting tense, ma'am. So please suggest some measures to overcome this.
So Priyanka, one is if you've got a hyperactive child, the going says that the more your child is hyperactive when he's young, it just shows that your child is extremely intelligent. Your child is very, he's a brilliant child. And if you're going to, curb his nature by always telling him not to do what he's good at doing, if you're going to always tell him to keep quiet if he's asking you questions, or if he wants to uh, do activity, and if you're always telling him not to do it, I think you're not doing good to your child. Because if your child if you have to define what is over active, or what is it that irritating you, maybe he doesn't sit quietly, he's just running around all the time, or maybe he's asking you too many questions, or maybe he's a little distracted, just channelize his thoughts, channelize his mind. What you need to do is maybe get some good drawing books, some coloring books, or some in board games. Just get him to think about it. If he's asking you questions, be patient to answer his questions. Get him some books, make him sit, spend a lot of time with him, get him to sit on your lap, start reading the books with him. And because when you connect with him like this, the child, he's also seeking attention from you and manifesting in all these ways of irritating you. So if the moment he knows that, okay, whatever is done, my mom will answer, she's spending time with me, okay, mom is busy, I shouldn't disturb her at this time, but eventually when I know that she can help me, she will. So give that kind of a sense of satisfaction to your child, who's, I think, to what you're saying, that if he's so overactive, he's extremely brilliant. So channelize his thoughts, channelize his action intelligently yourself, recognize what his strong points are, and build on that. Suppose you feel that he's good in say remembering things, or he's good in remembering, start teaching him something new every day. Maybe start dictionary, get some difficult words, make him to remember some difficult words, alphabets, do something, channelize his thoughts positively. You'll be surprised, you'll actually be amazed how the child will respond, and how you'll enjoy the process with him. But do not be angry, because that's a negative emotion which will pass on to the child and eventually manifest it when he grows up. So please do not be angry, be patient.
Ma'am, there's a question from Yuvashri. So she's asking that is it really a good idea to reach out to people that she's afraid that someone would reject her or see her as a different person? So what would she do? What can she do?
Okay, Elsie, can you hear me? I just removed my earphones. It was giving me some problem. You can hear me?
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
Can you repeat the question again?
So this is from Yuvashi. She's asking that is it really a good idea to reach out to people? I'm afraid that people might reject me or see me as a different person. What should I do?
What's her name?
Yuvashi.
Hi, Yuvashri. That's again a very interesting question, and many people face this, the fear of rejection. See, Yuvashri, if you are smart, I think you should connect with people who do good to you. So there is this community of people who you think are your friends, who you think are your well-wishers, but they don't mean too well for you, because at the end of having a conversation with them, or the end of spending time with them, you feel even worse than what you are. You're even more depressed. You feel more lonely. So do not connect with people like that. They could be very close relatives. They could be people very, very close, even related to you by blood, or they could be close friends whom you think are very close, are your close friends. I think you should not connect with them, especially if you've got a very sensitive and fragile mindset. So reach out for those people who bring out the best in you. Reach out to those people who allow you to be yourself. Reach out to those people who, at the end of the conversation, leave you laughing. And even reach out to those people who always tell you that you're the best, you're beautiful, you are so special, you're so gifted. You, no matter what others say, we believe in you, we believe in your abilities. Reach out to people, and even if you have one such person who's doing that to you, stay in touch with that person. Don't let that person go, because if you're going to surround yourself with these negative thoughts, negative people who you think in your perception are trying to put you down, or you're scared of them, I think just avoid them. It's okay to avoid them. Even if it is for the interest of your good, it's okay to avoid them. You can just be cordial to them. You can be you need not be too friendly, or you have them as your bestie. You can be their acquaintance, but please do not allow negative emotions, negativity to come near you. Think for yourself. This is like that oxygen mask in an aeroplane. You know, what do they say when there's a critical the situation in the aircraft? You have to first pull down your oxygen mask, put it, and then you help others. That's what you got to do out here. First, help yourself. Know what is good for you. Surround yourself with people who mean good for you, who do good for you. And if that person, however close he would have been to you, it's okay if you do not have much to do with that person. It's all about yourself first.
Thank you, ma'am. So the next question is from Lavanya. So she's asking that she doesn't have a particular reason for her sadness or for anything, but she feels that she's in depression. So but she has no particular reason. So, and she's not able to figure out her reason also. So what should she do?
So Lavanya, if you had heard my talk in the initial part of my talk, I had spoken about this. So depression is when you're feeling these symptoms from over 2 weeks, and if it is affecting any kind of work that you're doing, if these two things you feel is that means maybe you are depressed. We would categorize you maybe as a mildly depressive or a moderate depressive, that a medical health care worker would be able to categorize you into what category you would be in. Lavanya, there's nothing to be scared of. We have people like Deepika Padukone, who's been depressed, and we have people who are, and you'll be amazed at the kind of celebrities who are passing through big depressions. So it's okay to be depressed. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that you're wired like that. But the good news about the whole thing is you can be treated. So in case you feel that it's over 2 weeks that you're feeling like this, and it's really impacting your productivity, you're not able to work because of these negative feelings which are not leaving you, reach out to a psychiatrist, reach out to a counselor who will definitely help you, and you'll be amazed of what wonders it does. But at home, if I had to recommend what you can do for yourself, one is get into a hobby that you love. It can be gardening, it can be singing, it can be dancing, it can be painting. Just get into that and do that. See what are these factors which is affecting you. Suppose social media, which is the biggest culprit here. Sometimes social media can play havoc in people's mind. It's like, you have these likes, or you have people liking something else more than what you would want it for you. So stay away from social media for some time, and then also do a lot of exercise. As I mentioned before, it brings out the good happy hormones. Eat the right kind of food, because today food rich in vitamin C, zinc, magnesium, these are all wonder foods which will elevate your mood. Surround yourself with music, with positivity. And if some person, as I said earlier, brings out the best in you, and it kind of someone helps you to laugh, connect with that person, laugh a lot. And with your loved ones, maybe with your parents, your siblings, or your friends, indulge in board games. So all these things, you don't even have to kind of look further. If these things itself help you, try this out first. And if it is beyond you, if you're doing all this and you're still not feeling good, then boldly reach out to a psychiatrist. There's nothing wrong in that.
Thank you, ma'am. And there's a question from Annie Gladys. So she's asking that when a depressive person becomes really aggressive, so what can be done and what are the precautions for that?
So Annie, when you're talking of an aggressive person, see now, as I told you earlier, the causes can be many. So one cause can be a genetic cause, one can be environmental cause, one can be psychological cause of your depression. Now, if a person is suddenly become aggressive and you feel that no matter what you're doing, this person is still aggressive, it's over 2 weeks, he's not changing, and you know that something is wrong with him. First of all, if it is of a recent past, that he was a person okay, he was absolutely okay before, but suddenly you're seeing these changes in him, obviously there is some pathological condition in his body. Maybe he's a diabetic where his blood sugar is not right, or maybe he's got some underlying medical issue which is making him react like that. So that has to be ruled out first. So rule out his underlying medical conditions, if any, and if he's okay medically, and if he's not, doing well, then it's always good to immediately take him to a psychiatrist or a mental health worker to access him, because we have tools to access a person and grade him to his problems, to his depression, and it is very treatable, especially when caught early.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And there's a question from Vijaya Shivani. So she's asking, will OCD lead to depression?
Yes, it does. You're all those what did I call you? High performance depressives, because high performance depressives are OCDs. You know, you're obsessed. You're obsessed that this has to be perfect. You're a perfectionist. You want things to be in order. You cannot tolerate disorder. If anything happens, then you're upset, you're depressed, you're blaming the whole world, and you're empty from inside and you're hollow from inside. So these are the high performance depressives. So as I mentioned before, give it your best shot. Give it better than your best. You know that you can't do better than this. Give it your best shot. And if you know that beyond this, things do not change, just learn to accept it cheerfully, because you know that it's okay to, you're giving it your best. Situation stays like that. You just have to deal with it. It's looking after your mind first. You have to be happy no matter what. So make sure that that happens. That's important.
Thank you, ma'am. And there's like one last question. So from Reshma, she asked that is like, what do we do in regards with body shaming? Depression regards with like body shaming.
Reshma, that's a very, very good question, because that is something which I'm very happy to address. When I told you what were the reasons for depression, if you had heard the early part of my talk, it was also one of the reasons apart from biological, environmental, was psychological. And psychological, one very big factor is negative body image and low self-esteem. This is something that a lot of young people and also women feel, you know, they compare themselves to others, or they are surrounded by people who are always comparing them to others, which is wrong on that other person, but you don't have control over the other person. But as yourself, suppose you are always having this negative body image about yourself, you have to deal with that in a very positive manner, because if there's something which you can do something about, for example, you have put on some weight of the recent past and you are not comfortable. It's not that you're doing it for others, but you're not comfortable, you're not happy that you're put on this weight, then do something about it. Go to the gym, try to get rid of that weight, have the right kind of mixture of exercise and food, and deal with that. That is something which is controllable. That is something that is in your control. But your height, your color, your hair is something you're born in, and that is something you have to be very proud of, no matter what other people tell or talk to you about. So be very proud of who you are, because always remember that you were one zygote which was created by that fusion of one sperm and egg, and that one sperm was among millions of sperms, and that egg was among so many eggs, and out of all those combinations, you are the special zygote which was created, and you came to the world with a special purpose to do something. Remember that. Accept yourself the way you are. Be proud of what you are, and always try to do something positive for people. Reach out to others, because that way you will never feel ashamed of yourself. You always love yourself for what you are, and whichever is preventable, whichever you can face and deal with, please do that first. And otherwise, if it's beyond you, accept it and just keep doing what you were meant to do. You know, reach out for your inner resilience, reach out to build on your skills, and then with that, try to, you know, reach out and make a difference. Trust me, you'll feel a lot better.
Thank you, ma'am. And there's a question from Vidya. She is asking like, what should we do to overcome and get rid of an addictive habit?
See, Srividya, you have two types of addictions. You have substance addiction, where you are addicted to, you know, like alcohol and stuff like that. So that is your substance addiction, or you are addicted maybe like even technology. So I'm not sure that what addiction are you talking about, but just see what works for you in the long runs, because unless like I personally talk to you and I know what is this addiction you're talking about, but if this addiction is causing harm to you by any way and it is not good for you in the long run, or it's affecting your health, then you have to get rid of it. There are a lot of ways for you to positively go about it. As I said before, it is a fact that success is not measured in how you handle your you know, your successes, but how you handle your failures. That's the definition of how good you are. So I think you have to just, if you feel that this is bodily harming you, any kind of addiction is kind of bodily harming you and it's not doing you good, mindfully take your baby steps toward it. Always feel that it's not going to change overnight. You're not going to achieve big results overnight. But at the end of the day, even if you have taken your first baby step to kind of get de-addicted from whatever you are addicted to, it's such a big thing, you know, it's such a big victory for yourself, however small that baby step. But start with that small step. And every day at the end of the 24 hours, when you're going to bed, keep that should be on top of your list, and you say, another day gone where I've not done it, or at least I've done it much less than what I did it yesterday, and the next day is much less than what I did yesterday. So just take these body steps, these first basic steps, because you're not only doing it to yourself, but you're doing it for a loved one who is crazy about you. So be mindful of it. It needs a lot of strong inner resilience. It needs a lot of willpower, and I know you have it in you. You have to just tap it.
Thank you, ma'am. And this question is from Gracelyn Janisha. So she is asking, self-blaming and hopelessness are few of the factors that leads to depression. What if the person feels hopeless to even reach out? How to persuade such a person?
What's her name?
Gracelyn Janisha.
Okay, so Gracelyn, I just wanted to ask you, this feeling of hopelessness, how recent is it? Is it a very acute feeling that you've just been having it for a very recent past, maybe for just 1 or 2 weeks, or you've been always feeling hopeless all your life? So this is something that if you've been just recently feeling that, oh, I'm not good, oh, I'm not this thing, then try to find out what is this causing it. Is it a setback that you know in your heart that maybe this is the reason why I'm feeling? Deal with that, face your fears, because that is the first step towards redemption, you know, that you recognize, first you recognize what the problem is, face it and deal with it. But if it is something that you're not able to control, you do not know why you're feeling like this, and it is beyond you, and it is affecting your scope of work, and it's affecting your ability to think or do anything positively, and it is over 2 weeks, then it is always good to reach out to a mental health worker, a psychiatrist, who will definitely get you out of it.
Thank you so much, ma'am. This is a question from Kavita Nagraj. So she wants to know that her friend who is feeling depressed, so when I ask him to share his problem, he's hesitant and convinces me that he is all right. But I can feel he isn't normal. Please suggest me some methods to approach him and make him feel better.
So what was the problem? I didn't understand that, Elsie.
So he's hesitant about sharing whatever it is, and but he's depressed, but he is very hesitant about sharing, and like he's putting it onto himself.
He's blaming his problem on himself. Is that
yes, something like that.
Okay, and she's Kavita who's asked this.
Kavita Nagraj.
Okay, hi Kavita Nagraj. So obviously the person who's your friend and whom you feel is close to you, and he's not sharing whatever he feels. So there are two reasons about this. One is he's very embarrassed about this, and he doesn't want to tell this to you, thinking that maybe you'll judge him and you will kind of break away your friendship with him. Maybe there's that fear that is preventing him to talk to you about him, or he's genuinely, there's some problem that he doesn't want to talk about it. He wants to deal with it. So you have to be patient. Maybe in case you feel this problem is really, now that you've heard my talk and you can recognize the symptoms of depression, and you know that how it is important to reach out to people, and now that you've got your tools, just find out what is it, and if he really needs medical advice, find out if there's any underlying medical problems which is bothering him. He could be hypothyroid, he could have more blood sugar, he could have any of these comorbid factors. Rule that out first. Maybe ask him to do a health checkup, a medical health checkup, just to rule out whether he has any underlying problems. And if he is okay, if he is medically okay, then it's always nice to tell him that, okay, if you don't want to talk to me, why don't you talk to somebody who will listen to you, or talk to you this thing, or but also tell him it's important that you reach out and tell him that because you're behaving like this is not doing good to our relationship. You have to at least tell me, or even if you tell it to someone, just get out of it, or deal with it, because this is in the long run not doing good for us. So if he's really meaning well and he wants to continue this relationship with you, I'm sure he's going to tell you obviously that this is a problem and I'm dealing with it and I'm okay with it, or maybe he'll share it with you. But if he doesn't want to share it with you, but he's getting help from outside, that's also okay. You should accept that as long as he's getting better. The only problem is that if he's not getting better, he's not listening to you, if he's not willing to go out and get any help, then that's the scary part. That's when then you have to seriously consider whether you to really, want to have him as your friend or not.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So there's going to be last two questions. So this is from Urvasi Loganathan. So she's asking that how to overcome a guiltiness towards something which makes us feel depressed.
What's her name?
Urvasi Loganathan.
Okay. Hi, Yuvarsi. So what is there to feel guilty? Obviously, you're feeling guilty when you know that you've not done something right. So I think that the easiest method about handling guilt is to face it. So you might be guilty. How can I give an example? Maybe you're in a mode of losing weight. That's the most common thing I can just think right now. Maybe you're in a weight loss mode, you want to lose weight, and then you go and indulge in eating things that you should not be eating, and then there's the guilt that comes, oh my god, I shouldn't have eaten all this, it's happening. So this is just an example I'm giving. So how do you overcome that? So you have to first tell yourself that no, at least for give yourself timelines. For at least for 1 month I should not be eating this. Let me see how my result is after 1 month, and then I will see, then I will kind of decide whether I should do what I'm continuing to do or I should leave what I'm doing. So when you're guilty about something, obviously you're doing something that you should not be doing. So first face it, face that, be accepted that what you're doing is not right, and then change it to positively in your way. You must give yourself some time to deal with it, and then to see whether you can handle it. And then if you cannot handle it, then you know that maybe the thing that you're feeling guilty you need not feel guilty about it in the first place. So it's how you look at it and how you deal with it.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So this is the last question. So it's from Suganya Verma. So she asked that what should we do to stay away from person who disturbs you a lot for being silent? I don't have an option to stay away as the person is a family member.
What's her name?
Suganya Verma.
Suganya Verma. So Suganya, this is again a very interesting question. When last time I had addressed another bunch of young people, this was another person like this had asked me this question, that how do you avoid a family member who doesn't bring too much of happiness or is constantly making you feel sad about it. This is a very unfortunate situation, especially if it's as close as your parent or as close as your sibling, where you do not have much of a choice. But what advice I would like to give at this point of time is to just talk. It's just to talk, because sometimes you feel that your body language by behaving in a particular manner that other person is going to understand, and that doesn't happen. That person may not understand because continually he's doing it, or he or she is doing it. So it's always nice, without getting into an argument or without getting into any fighting, in a very proper manner. Or you can, if you feel that if I talk to that person eventually we'll end up fighting, maybe you can just write a letter, write a message or a letter. You can just convey that, see, I'm not liking this, these are some big things. That it could even be your own parent or your own sibling. You can just write and see that you're comparing me with so and so, you're all the time putting me down, you're not getting the best out of me, I'm not happy with this, what you're doing to me, and this is not doing me any good. It's always good to communicate and tell that person how you're feeling. And if that person genuinely loves you, if that person genuinely cares for you, he or she will stop doing it, because a loud one intentionally doesn't want to hurt another person. Sometimes this just happens unintentionally. So start with this, start with communicating by any form, verbal communication, or write and tell him or her, but tell them that you're not liking this. And even in spite of all that, if they're not listening, then it's okay for you to also, not have too much of communication with them, because they know that in spite of you communicating, in spite of you verbally or telling them that you're not liking what they're doing to you, they're still doing it. You're not really interested to be communicative with them. It's okay for you, because eventually then if they really love you and if they're going to miss your company, they will change, or they will at least be mindful, they'll be careful not to upset you.
Okay, Dr. Renuka, thank you so much for patiently answering all our queries, all the participants' queries.
Dr. Renuka, there are a lot of positive comments, awesome inputs. Good hour,
Really?
need of the hour. Thank you so much. Very informative. Excellent presentation. All these are positive comments from our students.
I'm so happy that I could, morning, you'll be surprised when I woke up, that was my only prayer that today, if there's anyone out there facing a similar situation, I'm able to answer them. I'm able to put their mind to rest, and as long as I've done that, even to a couple of people, I think this talk has been successful.
Yes, definitely. So shall we wind up now?
Yes,
Before
ma'am.
we wind up, we would like to see all your videos. Can we just have your videos, please?
My videos. Okay. You mean to say my videos which...
Students.
Videos of the students.
Oh, yeah, I would love. Oh my God, there's so
Yeah,
many.
you can just
Hi.
see
Oh
them.
my God. There's so many. It's so good to connect with all you guys. Oh my God. There are over 500,
Can you
I think,
just
right?
unmute your videos, please?
Over 700, man.
Over
700, 800.
700. Oh my God. Wow. And